Hello, folks. I'm the generally beautiful and moronic hack, and I have a special video with a special guest for here on my Only Hack channel. I am here with a good friend, and and at this point, you can say longtime collaborator, and that is my good friend Ghetto Machine. Go ahead, Ghetto. Introduce yourself to what could hopefully a both familiar and new folks who'll be hearing you for the first, but definitely not the last time.
Hello, people. I'm Ghetto Machine, pronounced Gehto, Ghetto Machine. I'm a bum. I hang around the Hack Jack show sometimes, and I'm a frequent guest. I also have a Twitter, but don't follow me. I don't talk about nothing on there.
No, he.
Also, because of the, but because of the new Hack channel, I had to change my contracts over. I used to be paid in chicken nuggets to appear on the Hack Jack show. Now they pay me in chicken tenders to appear on this channel.
Oh yeah, a both a promotion and a raise, one could say. But only McDonald's chicken strips for however long that they'll have that item. So we come together because we want to discuss and actually a very recent comic series that debuted late last year and actually just finished as of, I want to say, this month, right, Ghetto? The last issue came out this month.
Hey, no, that last issue came out in July, so you're a month off.
Yeah, you're right. Times are late. It was my timeline's all wrong. That's correct. And the series that, as you can tell from the title of this video, is going to be the Spencer Ackerman and Julius Otwa. That's how I learned how you pronounce that. Run on Iron Man. Debuted on October of 2024, with issue 10 being the final issue, ending on July 2025. Now, I actually do want to ask a Ghetto first, because Iron Man's not a character you frequently talk about, in our many previous conversations. So I'm actually curious what inspired you to actually pick up this series.
I think it was hearing you talk about this, like how you said the first few issues were pretty good. I think it only 3 issues that came out when you told me about this, and I was like, oh, he says it's pretty good. I'll check it out, and I was hooked. But you are right. Iron Man really isn't a character that I'll be like, let's see what's going on with Iron Man currently. But I do enjoy some of his classic stories. Like you can't go without Demon in a Bottle. I think that is the Iron Man story. Everyone's like that one.
And I still need to do my due diligence and read the proper Armor Wars, as well as the era of Iron Man where he's wearing the Silver Centurion armor. When I came into reading and collecting comics as like an actual hobby, I came in on the tail end of Brian Michael Bendis' Iron Man run, and that was the worst time to come in, because this was during the era of Tony Stark being an AI for Riri Williams. This is when Riri was, for all intents and purposes, the Iron Man before she actually got a proper Iron Heart, which I still think she should have been called Iron Maiden. I don't care what legalities the Marvel will have to do to even use that name because of the band. It's still a missed opportunity. Still,
This man will die on this hill, everyone. For as long as I've known this man, he's always brought this up, so he will firmly die on this hill.
exactly. And to add salt on the wound, after Bendis's time on Iron Man concluded, the next writer Marvel decided to put in was good old Dan Slott. And to be fair, I give it the good old community college try. And I dropped after 5 or 6 issues in. I don't remember. The only real memory of those specific comics is that Dan Slott was trying to hook up Tony's biological mother with some Stark employee, and Stark's brother, Howard Stark's actual biological son, was doing some weird experiment with cows or something to that effect. My memory's hazy.
Okay, I remember this. I tapped out around when you tapped out then. I wasn't sure who had written that specific story arc. I wasn't sure if it was Slot or if it was Bendis, but okay, I'm glad you confirmed it for me. That was Slot. All Slot.
Yep. And because of that, I didn't touch any Iron Man books for quite a while. Not until I want to say early 2024, maybe late 2023, when I I forget why, but I ended up getting a subscription for Marvel Unlimited, and during that time, I was actually not only reading some comic series that I was always been wanting to read through the app that I really didn't want to go out and actually get the issues. But at the same time, I was also catching up on what was concurrent during that time, and what was concurrent was the uh, 20 the 2023, where's the 2023 our Invincible Iron Man series by Gary Dugan. And I really enjoyed that his run, his 20 issue run. I read it from the beginning to the end, and while I read the first half, I read part of the first half of the series through the app, and as I was catching up, I then actually decided to get the books, and I was able to catch up on time. I really enjoyed his run. Love the character arc he put Tony through, and he was able to take a unique spin when the Iron Man books got part of the crossover event with Fall of X. He was able to take what would have been a a distraction from a Iron Man tale to honestly make a miracle of having Tony Stark and Emma Frost be in a relationship, even if it was under not ideal circumstances. But I really I enjoy the relationship so much that I was willing to put up with the fact that all of the Iron Man stuff was being taken over by the stuff that was going on with the X-Men at the time. And funny enough, I wasn't the only one who enjoyed that because at the end of issue 10, Spencer Ackerman's run on Iron Man, there is a single page at the end of the comic with a tease that there's going to be a dedicated Iron Man and Emma Frost series coming later this year in October, which I hope Gary Dugan returns to write. Preview page didn't announce who was writing it, so here's hoping that they actually get him to do that, and I'd love to see the forced to be a couple be together again on the comic. So I give all this pretense to show where I am with Iron Man. I'm enjoying Gary Dugan's run, and so I then of course move on to read Spencer Ackerman's run on Iron Man. Now I was slightly late. I didn't pick up issue 1 when it came out. I jumped in at issue 2. And I want to actually, before we start talking about the series proper, I actually do want to share some background information that I was looking up because, well, let me ask you this, Ghetto, and maybe you might surprise me. Have you ever heard of Spencer Ackerman?
Not before this book, no. I did also look up I did look up what he does though and try to read some of his articles, some of his work.
His now would that be his only other work of fiction or his actual political journalism? Because that's what he is, folks. Spencer Ackerman is a dedicated political journalist who has been, and this is what it said on his personal Substack, who has been covering the war on terror since 2002 and nothing else. That is his bread and butter, which makes it for an interesting pick for a writer to do an Iron Man comic. He did write one other comic series, and before Iron Man, he wrote the DC Black Label series of I believe it was called Waller and Wildstorm.
Oh yeah, I never got around to reading it because I was never that deeply entrenched in the Wildstorm stuff. But I've yeah, that's I think that's one of those Black Label books that kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people.
Well, guess what? It was actually because of that book, which is actually, believe it or not, Ackerman's first ever comic project. Prior to the Waller Wildstorm comic, he did not do any type of fictional writing. Like I said, he's a professional political journalist who has extensive coverage covering all of the United States military operations since 2002. And you can take of that what you will. I have not read any of his political books or articles, so I cannot give any opinion on that matter. That's something you have to read for yourself. I'm only going to be strictly looking at what his writing on the Iron Man series. But I bring this up because this is not the first time that Marvel would pick a writer who has little to no comic book experience. This was very prevalent during the all new, all different era of Marvel, just after the Hickman Secret War story, in which we did see a lot of writers with little to no comic background get mainline series to write these books. One infamous example is actually, as we a character that we mentioned, Riri Williams. One of the writers that she was given after Bendis left was someone who literally did not write comic books at all and had no history of comic books or didn't even read them. Believe it or not, her name escapes me, but that's what this is not the first time Marvel has done this.
I do remember R.L. Stein writing a Man Thing book. Would you also are you like you figured that would at least fit?
He at least wrote fiction. Spencer Ackerman, aside from the DC book I mentioned, has not wrote any type of fictional writing. At least not published. That's not published and available for the public.
Yeah, you don't know what he writes in his diaries.
Probably a lot of things. And in preparation for the discussion, I was able to find a very long interview on a website that you will see on the screen from a website called gatecrashers.fan, in which the the people who run his website had a long discussion with Spencer Ackerman back in October 2024, hyping up his upcoming comic. And having read the entire interview, my takeaways are that number one, despite his lack of credentials of writing comics, he is actually a fan. In the interview, he has stated multiple personal favorite runs of his, with two of them being the Kurt Busiek and Matt Fraction run of Iron Man. He is at the core a fan of comic books, and he has read at least more than one run on Iron Man. He also name dropped a whole bunch of other creators that has written Iron Man over the years and showed his at least his knowledge of the character. I want to give credit where credit is due, that Marvel didn't just pick a well-known reporter to write fiction when they don't have a lot of experience writing fiction in the first place. The other example that fits this is the, I won't say infamous, but definitely the,
Before you say it, let me guess. Is it the J.J. Abrams' son comic?
nope,
The J.J. Abrams. Oh wow,
nope, that's just pure what's that we're looking for? That's just
nepotism.
nepotism. No, the only other reporter turned comic writer I could think of with not much fictional writing is actually Talanasi Tal.
Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Thank you for that. Ta Coates, yes, who he has his fans. If I'm going to be generous, but he's also was not, what's the word I'm looking for? But
Good.
he also did lose a lot of fans, especially with his runs on Black Panther and Captain America, and as well the infamous Black Panther and the Crew series, which did not last long.
Oh yeah, I actually read that one. All 2 issues.
Yep, just 2 issues. That should tell you a lot. So I give this example to show that it's not the first time that Marvel would pick a writer with little comic experience, and that there has both been not very good examples. But with Spencer Ackerman, he represents the opposite, where he's actually a fine example because at least he shows enthusiasm and knowledge of not just the source material, but of Marvel comics in and of itself, and just general comic comic book, I won't say culture, but the comic book world. So he is a comic fan, and I glad that I read the interview that was the case because I really wanted to understand where Ackerman was coming from when he wrote this series. And the interview actually did provide some insight into some things I was speculating about because unfortunately the 2025 Iron Man series, is what I'll call it, or the Ackerman run, is unfortunately one of the number of canceled or the least prematurely ended comic series for this year. This also happened to another series I was reading called New Champions, and that one ended on issue 8, unfortunately. So it couldn't even reach to number 10 like Iron Man.
And for me, it was Metamorpho.
Although that's more of a DC thing, but yeah, still, it's part
That
of
was the
the
best example I could think of.
it's still part of the books that got canceled prematurely. So, in trying to look up more info about this, one thing that kept repeating about this Iron Man run from Ackerman was that he wanted this series to be, in his words, intense and brutal. Now, and that was something that the official Marvel press release talked about this run, and what Ackerman said about his run, and that he wanted pretty much to make Tony go through the ringer and to really, I don't want to say make Tony suffer, but the very least, is going to be it is not going to be easy with this adventure that Tony's going through. And with that in mind, with the idea that this is going to be a story where Tony is going to be put to the test, is going to be intense as is reported, is going to be brutal. Ghetto, as you have read this in these 10 issue series, do you believe that Ackerman achieved what he was going out for making a very intense and brutal Iron Man run?
I want to say it's not brutal, but it is pretty intense. But I'm using intense in kind of a more, it's very thrilling. Like I didn't expect to go to limbo in this Iron Man comic.
That is true. Which I should say for people watching, we are going to be talking a whole like the entire series. So this is your last spoiler warning. There you go. Yes, Limbo makes two different appearances in this whole run, which actually in the beginning, not only did I not see that coming, but I actually thought it was set up for a very cool moment with with Tony Stark having to do demonic deals to get his company back.
Yeah, I love that.
And and the best part is that it's not like he did. He's not like he did anything where like he sold his soul or he had to sell something of value, uh, sell something of value to some demon to get his company back. Like some other superheroes. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He just was a sly businessman, and he used that experience to get his company back, which I think for that first run I very much appreciated that aspect of Tony was utilized in order to um, resolve the initial conflict of the story.
Yeah, I do too. And I kind of think it shows. I don't know how to phrase it. Like how great of a person Tony is. Like how great of a businessman he is, so to speak. Because at the beginning of the run, we saw him speaking with union workers for. We saw him speaking with union workers, trying to get the best deal for them, and then we hard cut to a few issues later of him outsmarting literal demons.
Yep, and that involves one of the original characters created for this run. That would be the Union leader Ramon, who has a minor role for this whole story. And his whole thing is that he's basically there to remind Tony of the little people that help make his business run. Because that's one of the big themes. That's one of the themes about this Iron Man run. Is Tony is that phrase of when you what's that phrase about the trees in the forest? Like you remember how that goes?
You can't see the trees through the forest or for the forest. It's something like that.
Yeah, basically, it's that aspect of Tony's looking so much at the grand plan of everything revolving his company that he's missing out on crucial details that will actually help his company succeed, like early on with the union, and how in I think one like in two occasions the entire run, every time his employees have to unionize, something ends up trying to attack him. The first time it was literal demons hired by Roxxon and AIM, because those are the two companies trying to acquire Stark Enterprises, and they end up hiring demonic bodyguards to be union busters. And then the second time, when Tony actually he finally got his company back, he trusts his head of security, a former Shield agent lady by the name who goes by the name of Calvary. Her real name is Melinda May, and she ends up using like ex Shield agents to be some sort of like a strike force of sorts for Stark Enterprises, and they ended up being a bunch of Union busters. And in both cases, Tony had to come on in and set the record straight, and ends up another argument with Ramon, the Union leader. And Tony's like, "Why?" And every time that happens is in the middle of Tony having to deal with either in the first half of the story, him dealing with with his losing him his company, and the second half dealing with the whole uh Doom taking over the world nonsense that we'll talk about soon.
I like how you just threw that in there. But to be fair, if you're reading the comic, they just throw that in there. So
Well, I will say this. The comic itself, you can divide it into two different arcs because it really is only two different arcs. The first one being the Stark Roxxon War, and technically that's just issues 1 through 3, and issues 4 and 5 are the aftermath of that storyline. But issues 6 through 10, all of that is part of the crossover event One World Under Doom, in which that would go into what probably is going to be the biggest critical aspect of the comic. And since I'm already talking about it, I'll say it here in that the comic started off strong with great ideas and with a vision going forward, only for that vision to be handicapped by it being forced to be a part of this year's crossover event with Marvel Comics. I believe that's what led to probably the story didn't turn bad, but it did feel like okay, we have to deal with this now. And Spencer Ackerman was put into the duty of having to work around these conditions for a story that didn't necessarily have anything to do with that had nothing to do with One World Under Doom.
and I was gonna pretty much say everything you just said. I 100% agree with you. Usually, if this happened into a book that I was just starting to enjoy, I would honestly stop reading it right there if I just didn't care about the event. Like, I don't really care about the Doom event. Normally, I'd stop right there. But I'll say this, I think I really like Spencer Ackerman's voice for Tony Stark. I like the way he writes him. That was enough to keep me reading even through this parts where I'd usually go, all right, I'm done here.
And that definitely does deserve high praise. I do enjoy the characterization that Ackerman gives to Tony, because luckily, because Ackerman himself has a lot of real world experience dealing with literal weapons companies and dealing with that aspect of the U.S. military. He of all the writers, he can actually understand a Tony Stark type of person and actually make him not only believable as a CEO of Stark Enterprise, but also be like, okay, let's actually make him a good person, unlike the real life examples of people like Tony.
You know, so many bad apples. I guess you gotta imagine what a good one would be like.
Which, admittedly, if you remember, that was one of the ideas that Stanley was thinking of when he was developing Iron Man. It was that, hey, why not make a hero out of a person that hippies hate? And yeah, that was the idea. Let's make
Was that really the reason?
yeah. Uh,
Oh wow.
yes, Stan. He wanted to make a comic for the young people, and he was like, you know what? Let's turn someone that a person that hippies will hate, a rich millionaire CEO who makes weapons, and turn him into a hero that they will like. And it
Okay.
and his plan succeeded, and that's why Iron Man, despite the limited amount of mainstream attention he received up until 2008, was able to have ongoing series without no TV shows, or at least if there was ones, it wasn't that popular. No movies, no nothing. That should tell you something.
He did have a TV show. Remember the Iron Man '90s cartoon?
Yes,
It
and
was also kind of a West Coast Avengers cartoon.
well, season 2 was. But that was only for like a year, maybe two. That doesn't define in Tony's and Iron Man's entire existence as a character.
Yeah, we don't talk about that one the same way we talk about Spider-Man.
Exactly. Did not have the same type of influence other superhero media around that time had, like with all the Batman movies and TV shows, and how that affected a lot of the changes into the comics. But we're going on a tangent. The When you said actually the voice of Iron Man, that actually reminded me in the same interview I talked about. Uh, Ackerman actually he shares that in trying to find Tony's voice, he actually had a rule to go by, and I think you appreciate this, Ghetto. One of the rules he says that he wrote for himself as kind of like his own guide to writing this character, that Tony Stark can only have a 20 to 50% of RDJ of Robert Downey Jr. Because he knew enough about Iron Man to know like, let's not try to make comic book Tony Stark like MCU Tony Stark. He can have a little bit of it, like very little, but that's it.
Yeah, I feel like Iron Man fans have been struggling with that for years after the first few movies,
You can blame Bendis for that.
as always.
And reading that part of the interview, I'm like, you know what? I was like, damn, he gets it. He gets it. He knew who Tony was, and Tony was not the Tony from the movies. so so I really appreciate that type of guidance to himself when scripting these stories. Before I move on to my next point, is there any points you want to bring up about this run?
I will admit, I was kind of shocked to see more references to the wider Marvel universe, like Doctor Druid of all people being here, and also I did get a kick out of the line one of the characters said when talking about Roxxon. It was one of the side characters, like, they make comics. How can they be an evil company?
which is a fun
Am I?
which is a fun reference to Al Ewing's Immortal Thor run.
Yep.
I also did appreciate that line early on, and I would say I think probably the it's kind of funny how once they go into limbo, I do find the Starks his board of directors. I do find it a bit goofy, and maybe that was the intention of how obviously kind of evil schemes Roxxon and AIM were doing, but they're all just going along with it up until they realized that they would have to, in a way, if I think I remember, it was that they're going to have to give up their soul to Belasco.
Yep.
It's like literally up until the me, not the devil, but a devil. It's like, oh wait, you were serious. I do appreciate that type of humor that was put into it. One thing I should also bring to credit, the artist who did the majority of the books of the run. I think he did not do, I believe, 3 issues. Yeah, 3 or 4 issues he didn't draw. But Julius Owata, who's a Brazilian artist, who's actually a newcomer. I believe this is his first big Marvel project, and I would say he knocked it out of the park. And I really enjoy his artwork in all the issues that he drew. That I believe he's a great artist, and the colors done by Alex Sinclair really push his artwork even more, especially since with the he did not go easy on himself with the type of Iron Man armor that he designed for this run, which goes to this point. Ghetto, what do you think of the what's now called the improvised armor?
Normally when it comes to the improvised costumes like that, I never really like them. If they're trying to go for that divide between realistic while also trying to still look like it could be easily drawn in a comic, I really like this improvised armor.
I
Like,
I do too.
I would actually want a Marvel Legends figure of this.
With
I think
with
this armor is
with the
with the
giant
sword.
sword.
With the sword.
Yes.
I would genuinely buy a Marvel Legends this. And I think it kind of goes against one of my how I brought up how a lot of costumes try to be realistic while also trying to still fit in a comic. It's the exact opposite of how I feel about Batgirl's costume during that era where she was just wearing a biker jacket with a cape on and a mask. I forgot the name of that. You know what I'm talking about though, right? That
Y-
costume.
yes, and they'll make sure to put a reference image. That was during the uh Batgirl cosplay era of the character.
Exactly. Yes. I've always hated that costume. I've hated the way it looks. It just looks boring to me. And I will say Iron Man's armor kind of would fit that general tone, as in general design scheme. I mean, where it's not that bulky. It's mostly stuff you could probably cobble together for a really nice cosplay, and but it still fits.
And in the context of the story, it makes
It
a lot of
fits.
sense and it fits too. Also, one thing that I realized, I think I did not realize till after rereading this whole series, is that if you actually look closer at the armor, especially if you look at the cover for issue 3, I did not realize, and when you combine it with the sword, that he looks like a knight.
I got that right away once I realized, oh, this book is going for the supernatural theme.
I should have realized it sooner. I don't know why I did not catch that, but yeah, he looks like a knight, and with the sword, and of course, at least early on, when he has to fend off demons, that imagery is a lot more obvious. It's unfortunate then that theme and aesthetic doesn't carry out too much into the later half of the story. At least not a lot. Because by the second half, the armor gets a newer look in which it becomes a more, well, not a proper Iron Man armor. It's at the very least upgraded so that Tony could actually fire repulsors from his hands.
Huh. No, you're right. I actually did not notice most of the upgrades.
Which actually I did not notice the first time too, and which is actually important because the upgrades, it's not like they're subtle, but that it's more so the upgrades that Tony added from the Ironmonger armor, not very noticeable features of the body. Like if you look at the later issues, the Ironmonger pieces he adds are just the parts of which are just the parts that were the black leather he was wearing underneath the actual improvised armor. and it's so easy to miss, and it's so easy to miss that. And in fact, when I read this series the first time, I missed that completely, and I was confused when at near the end of the story, when it was talking about how the Ironmonger armor was is literally cursed with magic, and it was gonna make whoever wore the suit crazy. That didn't I failed to realize that what was going on with Tony when he was wearing just bits and pieces of it. And at the finale with his fight with Vishta, I believe that's how you pronounce the character's name, who would be the villain for the second arc. I did not realize that, oh, it was the Ironmonger thing that was making Tony do all these crazy decisions, but it was hard to tell because those pieces kind of blended in with his improvised armor.
You know what? That's actually a really. I guess it depends on how you look at it. That could be one of the best like upgrades you could have for a character like Iron Man. It's a little subtle, and the only way you catch it is if you really, really paid attention. Because I'm just flipping through the issues now. I'm on issue 8, and I'm looking at the armor. There's a big spread of the character with the sword and everything. I'm like, how did I miss this the first time?
Same here, and you would the thing is, if it was trying to be subtle, that would be one thing, but I don't think it wasn't. I think honestly, I honestly believe it was just that the upgrades were so un it was
It
it,
didn't overeat into the Iron Man design.
thank you. It wasn't a stark contrast to the first improvised armor that you know mentally you can kind of like those features just become dull. Not dull, but like you can like not
Your
see.
eyes get used to 'em.
Thank you. Yeah, you get used to it, and you just assume he's still wearing the same armor, even though the text and Tony's literally saying, "I put pieces of the Ironmonger onto my armor." So it's also a bit on us of not following along with the story correctly.
Come on, we're comic book fans. We can't read.
So
We look at the pictures, and
exactly.
not very well, apparently.
Can't even do that. We can't even look at the pictures well. So if I remember, you said you came around like issue 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So around the same time I did, and it was actually because of me you decided to give it a shot. I'm surprised though that you didn't bow out when Riri Williams made her brief appearances in issues 4 and 5.
Okay, I don't even hate Riri like that. She's just one of those like newer Marvel characters where I just go, oh, okay, whatever. And she didn't take over too much of the story for me to go, they're doing it again. This isn't Iron Man. This is Riri's story. This is an Ironheart book.
That's
Which,
true.
to be fair, I actually did read that entire run back when it was like fresh and new. I can't tell you a thing about it though.
And it's true. Riri is just there as like almost like it's not really a cameo, but she's just there as a supporting character for 2 issues, helping Tony deal with the magic demon virus that affected his company servers and therefore his armor.
And I like that they gave her something to do.
Although I do find the funny of a magical computer virus interesting. It's just like he's like, you know what? Don't worry about how it works. Just disbelieve. You know,
Just go with
just
it.
go with it. It shouldn't be that crazy that magic will find a way to somehow put a virus in your computers.
Look, I feel like we should just accept that in comics, computers can do everything. Remember how Carnage could just go into the phone cords and why you could go into the phone cords and wind up on the other end? We should just accept whatever technology exists in the Marvel universe.
That is very true. I mean, if I can accept that trend, like in early Iron Man stories, that transistors was the reason Iron Man could do everything he could. The same technology that's in real life that was mostly used for radios. Then I can believe that Scarlet Witch couldn't do a hex to remove a magical computer virus.
You also forget that Iron Man used to be able to make his armor in the cloth because he polymered a whole schmear. I remember that more than the transistors.
Yeah.
He's like, I just polymer the whole smear. I was like, that means nothing. Okay, Tony. Okay.
Oh,
All right, Mr. Stark.
also want to add in that this time a literal resurrection with Justine Hammer, antagonist of during the Stark Roxxon War story, and because she is returned, that also means that she becomes briefly the new Ironmonger. And when I look at the Ironmonger design, you know what was the first thing that came to my head?
I think you mean Iron Mommy, sir.
Oh, shut up. That Coke is just as corny.
I think,
That Coke is just as corny as probably one of the weakest aspects of the book. All those corny Iron GPT jokes. I was like, stop,
yeah,
Ackerman, stop that. Like Tony literally has
that was
made
the only one that stuck with me.
Tony made Jocasta. I think he should know how to make AI. I think Tony made Jocasta. Yes, he did. He did. I think. Listen, the point is he has made AI before, so why could he not get like the most rudimentary of AI things to work in his armor? It's for jokes, I get it, but it wasn't a good joke.
Yeah, I do think it went on too long, and I feel like by the end of the run, they should have just did away with it.
Yeah, it was even more corny when during issues 4 and 5 when Riri's AI companion Natalie was having they're like one of I think to me one of the more like lines of the series is when like Natalie no when Riri's AI Natalie like commented she said a line something to the effect of you know this is why white people shouldn't make AI and I'm like seriously seriously Ackerman. I was like okay whatever and I would say as fine as issues 4 and 5 were to me, I just feel it was a very on the nose type of conflict. Well, not even on the nose, not even that. I think it was just a very uninteresting conflict with Tony having to go to Chicago, and he ends up discovering that a bunch of racist Shield agents were kidnapping, capturing Chicago residents who are mainly black into like kidnapping them to keep them quiet and or something like that. Oh yeah, something to do with who was the that woman in charge that cyborg woman was like
Oh,
some high
her name is yeah, Lucia von Barda. I remember her because she was in Secret War, not Secret Wars, Secret War. You know that one with the Spider-Man costume that appears in everything, even though it was on panel like 3 times.
yeah the Nick Fury trying to sneak into Latveria to kill Doctor Doom. That story.
Yeah, and he does it while these guys are supposed to be in different costumes. Like you wouldn't instantly recognize that as fucking Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Or, or
Any case, she's the villain for issues 4 and 5, and she's a Hydra villain, right? Is that if I remember correctly?
I don't think it was like no,
Yeah,
she was with
Doom.
Latveria.
That's right, and she wanted to
Yeah,
her what was her scheme? She wanted to cleanse Chicago for Latveria or something. I don't know.
I guess that was supposed to be our issues that are bridging us into the Doom thing. They mentioned Latveria.
Yeah, now and to Ackerman's credit in that interview, when the interviewers asked him if he was gonna connect Iron Man to a lot of the characters in the greater Marvel universe, Ackerman purposely chose to keep quiet on that and just say, you know, you do expect to see other Marvel characters, and with the full context now that the whole series is done, he was very much aware that the Iron Man series was going to be a part of the One World Under Doom crossover, which which you know what I am kind of glad that this wasn't thrusted upon him. He was prepared for it. My only problem, and the only problem is that he was put in a very unfortunate situation because even though he has experience with comic writing, he hasn't. This is his first time writing an ongoing. Because he lacks that experience, I don't know. He did the best job he could of writing an ongoing during during a crossover event, which I mean that even for the most veteran of comic writers and artists, even that can take a toll. So I can't imagine what's Ackerman and Julius of them having to deal with that as like one of the first big Marvel projects. I mean, maybe which is to me probably one of my big critiques of this whole run. In that, as much as I enjoy what Ackerman brought to the table, I think it was a mistake to give him a run on a major character when he's only written one other comic book that was like a he could took his time and it was self-contained story with the Waller and Wildstorm comic. He never done any runs before, and because of that, I think that ended up resulting with the series that we have here, in which we have a strong beginning, and then the story it does not take a nosedive, but it goes into a low.
It
It
falters.
falters near the end, and that's because we have a very inexperienced creative team trying to hold this series together.
Yeah, I will admit he did his best as he could, and that was enough to keep me hooked. I think he did a great job with what he was given. However, I will say this book would probably be way better if he was just allowed to ignore the event.
Yes, if he was given that, if he did not have to follow with that event, this could have been a stronger series because s- at once after issue 5 ends and we had the whole thing with Scarlet Witch warning Tony to not wear the Ironmonger armor because it will mess with him. Just that premise alone of having a at least a year long storyline where Tony's one of his own flaws, which is his addiction to alcohol. Like you could have done a story where he becomes addicted of adding more Ironmonger parts to his armor because he just need an extra little boost so he can do this or to do that, and you could have built that up as Iron Man succumbs to the dark energy that is coming from the armor, and he then almost gets himself closer to in a way selling his soul to the devil. In this case, a literal sense. So, and that would have been reflective of you know of Tony's flaws of him having a very addictive personality. But instead, that type of potential story is cut short because of the Doom crossover event.
I just wonder what could have been. Like these what other stories could have been? I feel like he had a different story to tell, and he just had to go, no event.
Exactly, because when you actually think about it, the original improvised armor, he only had that on for about 5 issues, and after that, Tony puts on the Ironmonger parts. 5 issues, really. Tony had the armor for what, maybe just like a week or two in the timeline of the story before he put on the Ironmonger stuff. So we don't really get to see him that intensity or that brutalness of him having to fight, let's say his regular rogues gallery with a severe handicap. That would have been interesting to see, but we don't get that. Which is funny enough, that does actually also bring to me one critique that I have of this run, that even though Ackerman does a good job with the story he's written, the actual ideas of this are unfortunately not that original. Especially when you start off with Tony having to regain his company again, which that was his whole storyline in the previous run. And I'm also thinking, how
Okay,
many
because I felt like I was missing some context here when I hopped into this one because I didn't read the previous run.
Yeah, the
Uh,
the previous run, and especially because it relates to issue 4 and 5. In the previous run, the villain of the Fall Next story, the Orochis, they somehow take over Stark's company and they start making Iron Sentinels. And so that's why you have that's Iron Sentinel in issue 5, attacking Chicago. It relates to that.
okay, I didn't know about the Iron Sentinels because I'd seen them in some X-Men books. I just didn't know the full like context behind them.
Yeah, it was again Tony having to try to get back his company and him not having the resources because the villain of that storyline was had control of his armor. So when you kind of think about it back to back, he couldn't get his armors in the last run. He had to basically use the one that was literally on his back and try to work with that. He then gets an upgrade and he defeats the villain. Come the next run, he loses that upgrade and has to make a literally an armor from scratch in order to get his company back. And then when he finally does, he can't even use his regular armor. He like if you look at Tony's shoes, he just cannot catch a break.
Shoot, if you're an Iron Man fan reading what the past 2 years of Iron Man, I wonder how they felt hopping into this run just to see, oh yeah, he's right back to square one.
I mean, I would say this is not completely square one, but like, how many times are you gonna do the Tony has to build himself up again? Tony has to get the company again. And I can't imagine that this isn't a real original story with how long the character's been around. Like, I would love to talk to more. I would love to know or and talk to more experienced Iron Man fans and to know how many times has Tony had to get his company back, and how many times did he had to be in either no armor or an old armor that he has to work with, or he had to make a new armor out of spare parts. It's just insane to me that Ackerman's decided to go with that type of storyline that was something that Gary Dugan was kind of already doing in the previous run. But to Ackerman's credit, it was just the 3 issues, and then by the end of that, Tony had the company again, and Ackerman could focus on more original ideas for the most part.
I will say I do like how Tony is drawn in these first couple of issues. He's really skinny, emaciated even. Like this is a guy you can believe has been in the hospital for a minute.
Not only that, if you keep with happened in the previous run, this is a guy that has like he looks like someone who lost his fortune, lost his company, lost his woman because he did get divorced with well he had to technically get divorced with Emma Frost, but they ended up growing attached to each other, so it was hard to say goodbye. So he lost his woman again, lost his company again, lost his armor again, and he looks so like he looks like to me he looks like season 5 Samurai Jack or the last season of Samurai Jack,
Oh yeah,
like uncut beard.
unkept.
He looks unkept. The hair is everywhere, and I think early on he was such a low point that in order to even get the advantage, he didn't he like literally blow up a Roxxon pipeline, like in order to get some
Yep.
of their materials. Yeah, like one of his villains, he coerced her to help him.
Yeah. This is the intense part of this run. This is intense.
Yes, and unfortunately, that's the only time we see Iron Man do something that's morally not ambiguous, but it's an ethical dilemma. Because after that, once we get into One World Under Doom, we see you see Tony. He does more what we consider more moral decisions when the whole conflict of during the second half of the book is that he wants to stop Doom, and the only thing where he can do so is by indirectly supplying weapons to a Latverian terrorist organization. And but throughout the whole time, Black Widow keeps telling him, Tony, stop it. don't do that, stop it. And Tony's like, no, but it could work though. And
No, but for real though, let's give him a chance.
but the problem is that could have been a moral quandary if it wasn't so obvious that this plan wasn't going to work.
See, with the context of the Ironmonger armor being added to the improvised armor making him crazy, do you think that was the intent? That
Yes.
he knows this wouldn't work?
Well, no. The intent was that the armor was
Well, I mean that that he thought it would work.
yeah.
I misspoke.
That's actually spelled out in issue 10.
Okay, thank goodness.
Yeah. So which it logically it makes sense, but it does make for a very underwhelming finale because you can literally point to all the wrong things Tony was doing under One World of Doom. Oh, it's because of the armor and the dark magic.
Okay, I think that's why I didn't catch that reveal because all of it felt like it was a big wall of exposition. I did not like the last issue because it felt like the most rushed issue where he had to lay everything out.
I I'm not too big on the last issue, but I won't say it's rushed. I would say it's more like they had to pretty. It's pretty much a lot. It is a lot of exposition to set up for the next run, and that's only because this was most likely a series that was cut shorter than expected. Because I even tried to look up to see if either Ackerman or Julian it commented on the abruptness of Iron Man ending. Thankfully, they're professional, and so they're not going to talk about it. But what I do know was that the artist for the series, Julius Owata, he did not draw the last issue because Marvel reassigned him to draw the next Punisher series. So already, even
I
before
didn't know that.
yes,
I didn't even know they had a Punisher series running.
yeah, with I think it was I think it was with Benjamin Parsi. Either case, that should tell you already that Marvel's like moving on from this run, and in fact, to find out what more behind the scenes stuff I can dig in the interview again, which is probably the only good source of information about Ackerman and this Iron Man run. He mentions that the sole reason that he got picked to write Iron Man was because that the editor of this series, who his name is, I have to actually open my book here because I'm committed to memory. But the editor of this Iron Man series up until issue 8 is a woman by the name of Sarah Brunstad. And in the interview, Ackerman confirms that it's because of his Waller Wildstorm comic from DC. When Sarah read that, that's what made her decide that he will be the next person to write the Iron Man run. And then I actually looked the last issue, and then I looked at the credits, and in the final issue, I I open up and the crazy part was that the final issue has a completely different editor. By The editor for issue 10 is Will Moss. I'm like, wait, hold on, what's going on here? I go through, and sure enough, this like in this 10 issue series, there was a soft transition to a no, not soft. There was a transition to a new editor near the end of the book. Like I said, by issue 7 or 8, Sarah stepped down and Will Moss took over to complete the rest of the series. More than likely because Sarah and Julius were already off doing up to other projects, which tells me because a lot of these books are written in advance, especially when Ackerman mentioned that he has to script these comics 3 issues at a time. That they were pretty much ready to move on even before even before issue 7. Or I should put another way, either they were ready to move on or the Marvel um staff
They had an editorial shakeup.
that could be it too.
I feel like to prove that one, we'd also have to remember what books were running at around this time. and what their editors are. And I'll be honest,
I know that goes like
I can't say I was remember everything. I can't. I was only reading the Ultimate stuff around this time, since including this comic.
which yeah, and that goes into the weeds of it. But I'm putting this out to show that the Marvel, the company, Spencer Good praises the book most likely was not hitting any type of financial sales. But I have no proof of this because Marvel does not show that data anymore. So we'll never know how successful or unsuccessful the series is. I can only go by what I can see, and the fact that the artist and the editor were taken out of the series before it even concluded, and the fact that Ackerman has not been announced to be put on any future Marvel projects. It is not to say he won't be, it's just that they haven't announced it for anything else. And that the next Iron Man series is going to be focused on what was one of the most popular and successful aspects of the previous run. All signs point to that, unfortunately, this was not a successful run for Iron Man.
I genuinely could believe it wasn't successful. You were literally the only other person I could talk about this comic.
And it's a shame because,
Like,
again, there's a lot of good ideas, but you know what? Just like Doctor Doom, he messes with the heroes in fiction and he messed with us in reality by handicapping this comic book series. Doom got the last laugh.
he, he may be one of the greatest villains Marvel ever had, not counting editorial or Ike Perlmutter.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You know what's funny? We haven't got too much down into the details of the One World Under Doom section of the comic, and really, even as I reread it, I still can't it even as I reread it and I
It just
understand it more.
doesn't grasp you as much as the beginning of this comic.
Yeah,
Like, you're reading it, but your eyes are kind of glazing over it.
yeah, and on this character that Ackerman created was with Vishta, who I think was fine, but he's a very one note character. He is a he is a
He's underdeveloped.
thank you. He's a very underdeveloped character who was at the last minute put into the role as the final antagonist for the run. This when we saw him previously, he was shown to be okay. This could be a cool or good guy, and maybe that was the point. I get that was the point that he was someone who was good, but because of his desire to get his revenge on Doctor Doom, because of what happened to him when he was a kid, with what happened to his parents who were secret Laverian spies and so forth, and how he views as Doom as the how he views Doom as the person that destroyed his family, so to speak. He has given a lot of this backstory, but it's never really used effectively. And every time when he appears, he's either he's just kind of hanging around Tony, which is what I also find odd. That when Tony rescues him, he just is like, all right, just hanging around with me, despite the fact that for some reason the terrorist organization wanted me to kill you.
I feel like with that, we were supposed to get a bunch more issues with this guy. Like, we were supposed to slowly see him turn evil
Yep.
instead of the smash cut uh, backstory, suddenly evil.
When he revealed that he made a deal with Velasco so that he can have the magic to fight Doctor Doom, and his grand plan was he's going to defeat Doom, and then he will be the Sorcerer Supreme, and he will using that magic to somehow not lose his soul to Velasco, and then he'll be able to make sure that Latveria prospers again or something.
It don't matter. His motivations don't matter.
It's literally crazy. I read issues 9 and 10, like 8, 9, and 10 today, and I'm trying to recall them, and I'm going, yeah, his plan really did.
It's lost in the sauce.
Yeah, his plan didn't make too much sense, and even Tony pointed that out. Mitch You know, that might have been the reason. And also, I didn't also realize when I read, I think it was issue 9, because that's where Tony defeats Vishnu. I didn't realize that from then on, it's very much it's not implied, but it's set up that Vishnu will be the new Ironmonger.
Or so we thought.
Yeah, yep. Until until Tony beats him, he traps him in limbo, or he's able to cut a deal with Belasco, and Vishnu becomes trapped in limbo. I should put it like that.
And honestly, I feel like with the development we could have had, this is a very much a potential character that we've just cut short on development here because of events and this book just getting canceled. But I feel like we could have had an interesting character
I
here.
I won't say canceled because we have no evidence say it's canceled, but we can say it was prematurely concluded.
There you go. That's the PC. It was allegedly canceled.
There you go.
We can't get sued. It was allegedly canceled.
And also the whole thing with the Winter Guard. I mean, fine, they're just there to provide action moments because one thing that's littered throughout the entire run is that Ackerman is kind of showing off his he is showing off his experience dealing with real politics and the business of war, and so he adds that in to this book. And so there is a lot of moments where, in some cases, becomes cool. There's cool dramatic pieces of Tony outwitting his opponent, and then sometimes you do just get lost in this toss of literal corporate jargon. And I'm trying to follow along and going, assets, wait, what? Equity? It's like, I'm a comic book reader, okay? If I wanted to read about assets and equity, I would read Business Insider, damn it.
I want to see the man in the iron suit punch people.
Or at least use his sword,
I'm.
or use his sword. Like, actually, did he cut anything, or did he just repulse blast with his sword all the time?
I don't think he ever actually cut anybody with that sword. But to be fair, it's Iron Man, and I don't think you can sell Iron Man eviscerating people. This ain't Berserk. That would actually be pretty sick, though. Iron Man in a giant suit of armor. I mean, in a suit of armor, giant sword.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool to see
Look,
Iron Man in a giant suit of armor. Guess what? That happened in the last run.
no, I'm not reading it though. No, no. But I mean, with the giant sword in a fantasy setting, granted, it is just Berserk.
Or
Give me Iron Man Berserk.
or you know what? Have Iron Man with the sword. If this series went on long enough, we could have seen Iron Man, the improvised Iron Man fight against Fing Fang Foom, and thus it'll bring everything together. Hit him, the knight in shining armor fighting against a dragon. That would have been awesome.
Marvel, why do you let the good die young?
Or in this case, have them have your not as experienced creative team be a part of your big event.
I hope this kind of thing does not put Ackerman off of writing comics, like, or at least not like from ongoings. I mean,
I think the only thing, just looking at it, is that I honestly think I think he, from what I've read, I think he had a good experience, but really, I think he just, I think it was a cases of poor timing because of the Doom crossover event, but also just that he needed more books under his belt before he was given an ongoing. I mean, it's one thing to have a lot of experience within a field of writing that is nonfiction and is informational and persuasive, though to then transition to fiction to fictional writing. Those are, as much as there's similar skill sets. It's two different styles of writing that don't often intersect with each other. I mean, both in both cases, you know, both of them needs needs you to be able to create a narrative, but one's to create a narrative to enter to inform, and persuade an audience with a nonfiction, but with fiction, he has to entertain an audience, and he initially did entertain, but he couldn't do it all the way through because he was just he had to write under a lot of
He had too
constraints.
much on his
No,
plate.
no, not too much on his plate. He had a lot of constraints he had to work with because he has to pretty much end the run with returning Tony to the status quo, not completely, but status quo. Because by the end of at the end of issue 10, all that dark virus, magical virus, was it was gone away when Iron Man defeated Vishtu because he sucked up all the magical virus back into him when Vishtu put on the Ironmonger armor. The whole thing with that big attack in Latveria, that might get been into something, but for what was supposed to be a big dramatic moment of what's like the equivalent of a real disaster. Well, number one, that pales in comparison when in this same crossover event that Bucky mentions, where an American city got nuked, and for some reason Bucky's blamed for it, which I actually do want to read that, at least that series, the current Thunderbolt, to see what's going on there. When we read the first issue, and so the whole attack with Latveria, with all the people turning to ash and their souls being leveraged to as a deal for Belasco, all of that doesn't lead to anything because at the end of issue 10, Latveria itself suppresses all social media and news coverage of what happened there, and so the whole world basically doesn't know that happened except for Tony and the other characters who were there at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. When I read that, my whole thought was, so this doesn't matter. Like, not even other characters outside are gonna acknowledge this.
Yep,
Like,
not unless the next writer directly talks about it, but even then, that wasn't directly Tony's fault. It was Vishnu's.
yeah, I understand that. It's just, even though it's not quite it was all a dream. It's just no one's ever gonna acknowledge this. Like, what was the point of even tying it to an event? Usually, with an event, if you have a tie-in book, they're gonna acknowledge what happened. If anything, that kind of just told me that the what I just read doesn't matter to the grand scheme of the event.
No, probably not. And now that by the end of the story, Iron Man doesn't even have to use his improvised armor. The only real significant changes is that he's got his company back, and now he has a cool sword that other writers could play with if they want to.
And we'll see in a Marvel Legends at some point.
So, damn, I'm gonna.
I think we just read a whole filler arc.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, fuck One World or Doom. It ruined the run. Gosh, the more I kept talking about, I realized, damn, this crossover ruined the run.
Yes.
Oh my
Like
god.
I said, I was only hanging on because of how Ackerman actually writes Tony. That was the main thing keeping me hanging on.
Oh, that wasn't
Everything
enough.
else I just did not care about. We this They turned what could be a great Iron Man arc into one long filler arc.
It's the great T race all over again. Oh my gosh. Man, so in reality, issues 1 through 5, solid and great, entertaining. Issues 6 through 10, worthless. Worthless.
I would buy a trade of only those first 5 issues.
Yep. And you know what? And even about like, oh, but like, what about the conclusion, issue 10 and the resolution? All the next writer has to do is just make a quick summary of what happened at issue 6 through 10. They'll say in one paragraph, and then from move on.
We went from praising this run to realizing how bad truly crossover events are.
Yeah,
That
which is it's an obvious observation, but sometimes you can make it work. Which, like, I bring this up again. Gary Dugan's run, the last the last Iron Man run, his book ended with a crossover event, and he made it work.
What was the event at the time?
Fall of X. That's when um
Okay,
that's
yeah.
when like
Okay,
the
I didn't know if that was considered like a full event. I just thought that was one of those storylines contained to X-Men books.
yes and it's yes and no. I'm not aware of any other not X-Men comics involved with it, but because Gary Dugan is also an X-Men writer and he was writing Iron Man at the time, he was, and again it's a different editorial team. He probably got more involved with that side of the of the Marvel projects that were going on at the time.
Spencer Ackerman, if you ever somehow hear this, please, you're doing a great job. It's their fault.
Yes, and you know I have my critiques and everything. I would say this, if he ever listens to this, I would say this. You know, just have more works under your belt, because just so that you have time to iron out, pun unintended, your writing kinks, especially when it comes to humor. The humor that was in here in Iron Man, it's inoffensive, but it's also not that funny unless unless it's very clever and witty, which that is difficult to do. And there's a few little bits of that, but otherwise, it's about as corny as when Chip Zdarsky does humor. Actually, no, Chip is more cornier, but it can get to that level. I would also want to praise Ackerman that that even though it's his first ongoing, he does at least know how to make an entertaining action scene, which is much harder than you think. And of course, that credit also to go to Julius Huerta. He does an amazing job drawing all these moments and the intricate armors that the characters have to wear. I cannot imagine, especially that first Ironmonger suit with Justine Hammer, that I I was gonna mention before my we went to a different direction in the conversation, that first design of the Ironmonger with Justine reminds me so much of that character no one plays in Tekken 7. I think his name is Gigas, I think. Like just a big old
Oh yeah,
big
Gigas.
big arm, big upper torso, tiny waist, tiny little legs type of character.
Dude, every time I see Gigas, my immediate thought is Bane from the Batman.
Oh, that's right, because he does turn red when he
Yeah,
uses
like
the venom.
yeah, and I was so used to that that it took me a minute to be like Gigas, Gigas, oh Bane.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So that's it. And also, I could also very much tell that Julius was on point in the first three issues, like how unfortunately how that seems to be the trend. First 3 or 5 issues with the actual creative team, and then the fill-ins come in. Which actually, to give credit to the fill-in artists, the ones who came in, Pina and let's see, I think it's just is it just Pina? I'm double checking because look at and Villanova. They do a decent job drawing the issue when Julius was not drawing those specific issues that he was not a part of.
Yeah, and I do like Wata's work. That is how you pronounce it, right? Because I've been pronouncing it the Japanese way, Wata.
Well, yeah, it's Owata because he's Brazilian.
Okay, but yeah, I realized I looked because I really liked the art. I actually looked up if I'd seen his work in anything else. I realized I'm familiar with him because he drew some Betty Page comics I used to read.
Betty Page. That's man. That's
Yeah,
huh. I didn't realize.
dude, there's like a whole bunch of Betty Page comics.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't she a real person?
Yes, sir, she is or was.
So okay, so it's like a fiction.
R.I.P.
It's like a fictional version of the woman.
Yeah, and they put her in a bunch of crazy and weird scenarios.
Ah, okay.
Like sometimes she's solving mysteries, sometimes she's in the jungle.
Okay. So it's like it's like Elvira or a Kiss situation, where it's a fiction where it's a
Yep.
fictional version of the celebrity.
Yeah,
I see. Okay, I get it. I
and
get you.
I, yeah, and I'll admit some of them are pretty great. I like them. They're just comics I don't get a chance to talk about because who the hell is gonna hear about Betty Page comics?
Obviously, the underground Betty Page fan club that you won't allow yourself to join.
Nah, I gotta start my own with blackjack and hookers,
And all the hookers look like Betty Page.
as they should.
uh, anyways, Betty Page tangent aside, I believe we coming to our final thoughts, and Ghetto much as Ghetto Hype might have slight different opinions on very minute things. We're because I want to also keep in mind per record this. You know, we did not like constantly talk to each other about these comics and share every opinion about it as we were going on. Not even in preparation for this recording. So a lot of the stuff I'm hearing from him is me listening to the first time and vice versa. And the fact that individually we both came to the same conclusion, and that is strong Sart Ackerman has potential to be a really solid comic book writer. Julius is not only a great artist but a great designer as he designed the improvised armor. And it's damn shame that all of that potential was diminished because of a mandatory crossover event for this year, and because of that, who knows if Ackerman will ever return to do more Iron Man stories. I hope he does. I hope he does get to actually tell an Iron Man story that he wants to tell. But until that happens, Iron Man 2025 is just going to be another Marvel series that has strong start but dwindled at the end, and all of it is due to everything that was going on behind the scenes rather than the actual creative talent on the books. Your final words, Ghetto.
Overall, what would you? I was gonna ask, what would you actually rate this series, like on a scale of 1 to 5?
See, one being terrible, don't read, to five being essentially a masterpiece.
Yeah,
I would rate this series a a 3 out of 5, meaning that if it is halfway there. Half of this run is entertaining and solid to read, and the other half is not so much. It's not embarrassingly bad, and it's also not what's I'm trying to think of the word. It's not unreadable. I do want to get clear about that. The Ackerman did the best with the constraints that was stressed upon him, but he's not that talented enough of a writer to work with those constraints, and because of that, it cripples the entertainment value of this run. So if you do want to read this, at the very least, you can just buy the first trade, which is already out, and that's all. And just kind of stop there because you do at least get you do at the very least get story that
a
does
solid story.
a solid story that has a beginning, middle, and a open-ended end. Unless we're joking that the Doom stuff is filler, it's not completely that. There are some plot elements that is going to be a part of the next run, just not very important ones. Like you having to know who Melinda May is not going to be extremely important when the next Iron Man run comes out. I put it that way.
As for my thoughts, I I will say that this is very much the potential series. Like it had such great potential. It's could have been, should have been, wasn't though. Curse you, editorial. Like it is very much a potential series. Like I genuinely believe if Ackerman is given another shot, he'll probably. I think they should let him do a mini series instead of putting him back on the main run, just so he doesn't get like kneecapped again. But yeah, there's a lot of potential here. Ackerman is a great voice, has a great voice for Tony and a supporting cast, but then you're kind of stuck with the rest of it, which is the Doom stuff. And I'm a big Doctor Doom fan. I didn't care about any of it. I didn't even read that event.
Yep. And
And
and also
if you don't care about that, you probably won't care about
and
this.
also by the way, the event is just now starting to die down. Like uh, uh the last crossover comic with When We're Under Doom was Runaways that just came out this month. So we're just now getting out of that event.
Wait a minute. The first one of the first issues of the newest Runaways is a tie into this.
Yes.
Why?
I don't know. Everything's got to tie into it, and even the to it wasn't enough that they made series that is a directly a part of this event, like with the Superior Avengers. Oh, which hey, do you want to see Killmonger be part of a team of villains? I'm assuming that's what it is. I don't know that actually what that is.
Uh, all right. I just, if anything, this has kind of shown me how out of touch I've gotten with at least what the mainstream Marvel stuff is, like the in continuity stuff, because all I've read, now that I look at it, has been the Ultimates, like all the Ultimate stuff. I did read Daredevil: A Cold Day in Hell. Thanks again for bringing that one up,
Yes.
because that one would have passed me by. Um, and I did start reading the current Captain America run, which I think is Zdarsky.
It is, and actually, I would like to read that if I ever have the opportunity, because I like Chip. I like that he's back at Marvel. I'll give his Batman the honest community college try one day, but sometimes it's normal to have a miss every now and then.
And another thing I just thought about, I'd never heard anyone talk about any of the Doom stuff, like the Doom War stuff, the One World Under Doom. I keep wanting to say call it Doom World for some reason, but yeah, I granted that's not the best way to gauge the popularity of a book is if you see people talking about it. Like I just that's how I know if people are actually interested in this. It's worth checking out. Nobody has talked about the One World Under Doom stuff. The only times I see people talking about mainline Marvel comics is if they're complaining about what's happening in the X Men
Or Spider
and
Man,
Spider Man. But
but but that doesn't mean much because maybe they're not talking about it because no one is aura farming in those books. If you put a panel of someone's aura farming, then oh man, everyone on X is gonna be talking about it, but not actually read it.
and yeah, no one doing feats they can use for power scaling.
Yeah, yeah. Or how the fact that All New Venom is actually a pretty fun book to read, but everyone is so hyper focused on Paul that makes that's the only thing of the book that they're drawing attention to. When there's like a whole fun Venom book going on, it's actually important than stupid Paul.
Exactly. Like I've seen more panels of not panels that one page of MJ breaking up with Paul than I've seen anything else from that book.
You wanna know what's funny?
That is the one thing from that I've seen.
You wanna know what's funny? That's literally the final page of the latest issue. The final
I've seen more of
page.
that last page than anything else. I don't know what I know the basics of it, but I don't know what the full scope is. That is literally the only page I've seen the most of.
Oh man, and when I read the context of that breakup, I had to reread it again, but it really felt like it was Al Ewing really sharing his honest opinions about Paul through MJ. That's how I read it. But
I could believe that.
well, that's a completely different topic, and I'm gonna go ahead and want to close this off. So that is our discussion of Spencer Ackerman's and Julius Owata's run on Iron Man. Again, I recommend at least giving the first 5 issues a read. It's solid comic book entertainment. After that, you can continue the rest. You rest it on your own. I don't recommend it, but there's worser things to read. So if you want to be a completionist and read it, go ahead. I literally can't stop you. And with that, I hope everyone has a good day, a good night, and a good afternoon. This is the Generally Before TheOnlyHAC and his guest Ghetto Machine. Sign off.
Later days.